Yeah, well, and for our YouTube channel viewers, we've got a real special one today. I'm joined by former manager and director of football, Tim Harris. Tim, thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure, Chris.
Top man, top man. So, if it's okay with you, I'll get straight into it. You were a youth player at Newport in your early days. You were a goalkeeper as well. Is that true? You were a goalkeeper?
Yeah, many years ago. Before you were...
I was just thinking, not many goalkeepers make it as managers, but obviously, you played as a goalkeeper and you're actually a youth player at Newport. So, how come you never really made the first team at Newport?
Well, I think, like, at the end of the day, those days, long time ago, I remember getting a phone call from Colin Addison, who was manager at the time, and I was playing for the Herefordshire County youth team, and he invited me down, and the late Alan Woods was manager of the youth team at the time, and I come down and done okay, I suppose, and got in the youth team. Played a couple of the games for the reserves as they had then, or 11s and friendly games, and I was there about 3 months, and I remember Colin left and went to West Brom with Ron Atkinson, and then Len Asher's come in, and I think everybody basically was on trial, and Len was a really good character, and like Colin was, and the club. I remember walking into Somerton Park as a young kid, thinking, "Wow, this is a football club. It's a proper football club." And since then, I suppose basically, I think I wasn't good enough to make the grade, and I spent most of my career in the top end of non-league football, playing for the likes of Gloucester City, Cheltenham, and so on. But some great memories back then of people like Tony Gilbert, Alan Woods, I've just mentioned. Di Williams, the late Di Williams, some great characters, and obviously John Relish, who looked after me as a youngster, and Gary Plumley was the goalkeeper, Mike Dowler was the reserve goalkeeper, and I was like the youth team goalkeeper. So we used to train together over at Lamworth Steelworks, not the most salubrious of training facilities, but you just got on with it in those days. Nothing like it is today.
It was just football back then, wasn't it? I mean, it's a big showpiece now, isn't it? Whereas then it was just, you just mucked in and you just played the game, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't have any of these heart monitors and all the technical, video analysis that you get now. It was just get out there and play. And there were some great players in the first team when I was there as a youngster. And I learned a lot from the likes of Gary and Mike Dowler and the experienced pros that I remember, Ronnie Walker and people like Richie Walden, Steve Lowndes, Nigel Vaughan, all those lads that have done so well for the county for many years. Whilst I was only there for about 18 months as a youngster, it was a great time, and I look back fondly, and obviously Newport holds a great place in my heart, having managed them and then going on to be director of football and helping them get back into the Football League.
Absolutely. So there's not that much documented about your actual playing career. I know you said you spent a lot of your time in the upper end of the non-leagues. Could you tell us a bit about your time as a player? Any particular highs and lows for you?
Yeah. I mean, when I left Newport, I went to Gloucester City. Obviously, I live in and around in the Gloucester area, and I went to Gloucester City. I had about a couple of years there, and then I went to Cheltenham Town, which was, a real rivalry then between Gloucester and Cheltenham, because they played in the same league, and we had quite a bit of success there at the time. I mean, we actually won the Southern League Premier and went into the I think it was called the Alliance then. Years ago, before it was the National League and the Gola League and all that sort of thing. And, that was a really good achievement. We also got to the final of the Southern League Cup. But again, that was sort of, my top level, really.
Yeah. Okay. You played for Shrewsbury for a while as well. Is that true?
Well, that was before I sort of went to Newport, I was playing for the Herefordshire County Youth, and I went to Shrewsbury Town, or whatever you call it, and I had about 12 months there. But again, it was like Newport to where I lived in Dimmock was a lot closer. So, I ended up going with Colin to Newport County.
Okie dokie then. So obviously you're a name with us, with your time as a manager. So you started your managerial career at Cinderford Town. Was it 7 years you were there?
Yeah, I mean, it was. It started actually at a local side called Newham, and then I got the opportunity to go to Cinderford, and I'll never forget they were second from bottom of like the Gloucester County League, and we went through 3 or 4 leagues. We won the treble one season. We had Chris Price, who also played for Aston Villa and Blackburn. He was playing for us, and another ex-Newport County guy who's sadly no longer with us, Brian Godfrey, was my assistant. And we had a fantastic time there. And I said we took them up 3 or 4 leagues. We won a treble. We had a really good FA Cup run, and then I got a phone call off David Ando. I think it was through Graham Rogers, who sort of recommended me. And I remember going and talking to David, and the rest, they say, is history.
Yeah. So that was 1997. That's correct.
1997. Yeah.
So I was going to ask how the move came about. Obviously, you just answered that one for me. Thank you. The next one I was going to say, you were there at a time, and I just want to know what significance it was at the time for you. In 1999, the club reintroduced the Newport County name. So the Newport County AFC as of 1999. So you were the manager at the time. How much of a significance was that?
I think it was, what the people did to reform the club, and the fight they had with the FAW and the legal proceedings, and playing in Morton in the Marsh and playing at Gloucester and all round outside of it. Those guys, you cannot speak highly enough. What they actually did to the club wouldn't be here now today if it wasn't for those people all those years ago. And to get the name of the county back, I think was vitally important to bring it back into line with what it was. As they were progressing up the leagues and back in the leagues. I mean, I think I joined in, I think, June 1997, and I left in about November or December. What was it, 2002, something like that. And like, it was a real roller coaster. I had 4 chairmen. I mean, David Ando was chairman, then John Williams and Mike Rice, then Wallace Brown, and then obviously the new consortium come in, and I'd had a good stint, and it was, I think I managed just shy of 300 games.
Yeah. So you had a pretty impressive win ratio, didn't you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know exactly. It was around 46.5%. On 300 games, with the turmoil that the club had been in, because obviously the consistency of any club comes down to stability, and there wasn't stability. 1 minute we had a bit of money, and the next minute we didn't have any money, and it was up and down, and proud of that, and also the FA Cup run that really netted the club some money.
Yeah. 2001, obviously the FA Cup first round against Blackpool. Funny enough, that was going to be my next question.
I'm answering questions for you, Chris.
Yeah, there we go. Kindred spirits, like. So obviously we reached the first round proper. We got an away tie against Blackpool, which I know many county fans who I know would have had a really good weekend up there at that point. 2-2 draw away, which was a phenomenal result, and then pushing them into extra time in the replay as well. So would you call that one of the real highlights of your first managerial spell with us?
I think promotion was the most important. The promotion that we got, and the reason being is because when I come to the club, they just got relegated. So they'd had a setback and they just got relegated, and people were going, well, who's this Tim Harris? Like, what has he done? Who is he? Like, so to get the club back into the sort of Premier Division, I think it was then, that was a big highlight, because it's where the club needed to go, in the direction the club needed to go. But the Blackpool game, like all FA Cup games, as Flynn is experiencing, all the fans have experienced over the last few years, is very much part of it. They were redeveloping Bloomfield Road at the time, so we could only take about 1,000 people. But there was probably 1,000 in all the pubs around Blackpool. It was a carnival atmosphere. It was fantastic, and there's always that story about Jason Perry and Brett Ormerod in the tunnel. I don't know if you heard that, but that was a real point of it. And we had a great set of lads. We had some really good experienced pros, and we also had some really good young lads that were keen and proud to wear the shirt.
Yeah, so I remember that actually because I was in the Air Force at the time, and one of my best mates at the time was actually from Blackpool. So there was a bit of a local rivalry, even though he was a Tottenham fan, and I sort of grew up in the direction of Liverpool when I was younger. So we had a Tottenham versus Liverpool rivalry, and then there was obviously the Newport versus Blackpool. I so wanted us to beat them, really, just to rub it in his face, because he used to rub Wales in my face all the time because he was big with England. But I remember, if I'm right, on the same night, didn't Wales beat Italy? And England drew with Macedonia or something like that. Because I remember really rubbing it into him about that. No, I really wanted us to do it at that point. But, as you could expect, the bigger team obviously got through that in the end. And as you mentioned earlier, around about 2002, you moved on. Forest Green Rovers was the next destination for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically what happened was that we had a consulting come in of people, and they really wanted to bring their own guy in, and they brought in Peter Nicholas, and it was probably the right time for me to move on. I'd been there 6 years, I'd taken it far. It was probably needed, that impetus, and I've already explained I'd sort of like 4 chairmen, and it comes a time when there's some people there with some money that you have to hold your hands up and move aside. And that's what I did. But I left on extremely good terms and never fell out with anybody, accepted that what we had achieved in that period of time was in my opinion, it was a good run for a manager. 6 years is a good run for any manager. I keep reminding Flinny about that as well. And it was a good time. But Colin Addison had come back to the club, come back to Newport that season as my assistant.
Really?
And basically I got offered the Forest Green job and I turned it down. And then they come and asked me if Colin would be interested. And Colin went. So as soon as I left Newport, Colin said, "You're coming with me." So it was like a role reversal, really. Colin left Newport, went to Forest Green. I stayed at Newport. When I left Newport, Colin was then manager of Forest Green. So I went as his assistant. So, signing me as a young lad all those years ago and then having him as my mentor has been a great experience for someone like myself.
I can imagine, mate. So obviously you had managerial spells, obviously at Forest Green, Merthyr and Gloucester City following that then. And then you seemed to change your role in football. You wasn't so much manager, you was more of an upstairs role, as they say, director of football or, head of football, general manager type sort of role. What was the idea behind that sort of change of role for you?
Well, it was personal, to be honest with you. I had some personal circumstances with a business that I was running, and it was difficult for me to commit myself, to the training and everything else. And I stepped down from Gloucester City, and my assistant took over, a lad called David Mayhew that used to play for Bristol Rovers and Leeds. And David Boris, as they call him, was a really good lad. And I felt that he deserved the opportunity to manage Gloucester City. So I sort of said, look, I'd stay on, I'll help him. We actually got promotion that year into the National League. And then I got offered the opportunity to come back and help Dean Holdsworth. And I think it's fair to say at the time things weren't going great. And Matt Southall, who's been a very long-standing friend of mine and supported the club for many, many years, asked me if I'd be interested in coming back. And I said, well, look, it's great, but I don't really know Dean. If I don't want him to think that I'm going to come back and take his job, if I can come back and help him. So that's how I got really into that role as director of football was because of my business outside interest, really.
Okay. So you came back to help Dino then. So obviously that brings us to the 2009-2010 season. I mean, how special was that for you personally?
Well, it was another part of the jigsaw, Chris, really, wasn't it? You know, because go back to when they started and when they reformed the club, you know, there was one goal. You know, there was one goal, and that was to get back in the Football League. So to take them up another notch was a big step, and it was a fantastic season. I mean, there were goals galore, and we've got a WhatsApp group that still meet up now. We still chat, you know, and in fact, Dino put something on there, was it this week or last week, about 103 points, because Liverpool only got 99, you know, so it was all like, you know, 103 points, you know, that's massive, isn't it? You know, in any level of football. But it was the team spirit, it was the camaraderie, and to be fair, every club that I've been involved with that's been successful, it's come down to two things really: the team spirit, the camaraderie amongst the players. Yes, you've got to have quality, but also everybody pulling in the right direction. And we had that at Newport. You know, everybody off the field, from you know the kit man to the chairman to the fans, everybody was right behind us, and it was a fantastic season.
Well, it was the season that actually got me gripped on the county, to be honest with you.
Right.
It was pretty much after I'd left the RAF and then come home to Newport and then started coming over during that season, and that was where I got the bug as well. So I remember how special that was, and obviously I remember the Havant and Waterlooville game.
Oh,
you know,
unbelievable.
And Bar Amber after the game as well, being absolutely bouncing.
Taking the roof off Bar Amber, weren't we?
Oh, yeah. No, Nathan Davis is one of the best ones on the night as well. Good old boy. I was talking about him the other day, actually, Nathan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a record-breaking season, and then, as you said, you know, it was another step on that journey back to the Football League, of course. So, moving on the questions then, obviously, if you wanted to mention anything about Vegas, because I know I've spoken to Sam Foley and Gary Warren in one of these, and they mentioned how good of a trip Vegas was. So, was that a special trip for you as well?
I think the less said about Vegas, the better, really. But it was fantastic. It was the icing on the cake, because, to be fair, those players and the staff and everybody involved, it will be a memory that will live long in their memories, because it was special. Yeah, and a special group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, it's an amazing trip for you guys, and you all absolutely deserved it. What a phenomenal season that was. So the following season then, obviously back in the National League, which is where the previous county, the Ironsides, finished.
Yeah.
It was obviously back there, but it wasn't the end of the journey. Unfortunately, the club lost Dino halfway through the season after we were on a really promising run. So you became caretaker manager.
Yeah.
Until Anthony Hudson came in. So with Anthony Hudson coming on board, were you part of the hiring of Anthony Hudson? And did Harry Redknapp really have a big influence on you guys deciding to choose him?
That's a great question, to be fair. That really is a good question. To answer your question, not going to duck it. Yes, I did have a say in it. Ultimately, it's down to the board to make the decision, and I'm not sort of ducking it. But, you know, we had some really good candidates. I mean, some serious, really good candidates. And the one thing that stood out with Anthony was not Harry Redknapp, you know, and people can read into it what they want. It wasn't Harry Redknapp. This guy, obviously, he's Alan Hudson's son.
Yeah, of course.
Alan Hudson played for Chelsea and Stoke and everything else. Now, I don't think it's wrong of me to say this, but he was living in his father's shadows. He was a professional footballer at West Ham. He didn't quite make it. Yeah, he got into addiction, and he got addicted to several different things. And then he went to Holland and he got addicted over there. Yeah. And then he ended up going to the States, the United States, and he got addicted to coaching. Right? And his philosophy was unbelievable. You know, I remember the first training session he took, and you're thinking, wow, this kid is going to be something special.
Yeah.
The biggest problem was that the lack of managerial experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's so disappointing for myself and the board, if you like, because as a coach, you know, you won't speak to any player there at the time that wouldn't tell you he was a really good coach. But what he did lack was that inexperience in the manager's teams. He was very much his own man, so he had his own beliefs, and he wouldn't buckle away from that. And unfortunately, things didn't work out. You know, it's as simple as that. And we had to make a decision. And, you know, Justin was previously at Ruston and Diamonds, who went bust. He wasn't available. But when Anthony went, I just said that, you know, Justin is the guy, because, you know, he'd done his apprenticeship. He'd been to the likes of Fisher, Grays, you know, Billericay. He'd done all that. And, you know, he created something at very difficult times at Ruston and Diamonds. Very difficult times. And, you know, the club were nervous because, as I just said before, that if you're going to get success, stability is the key. You can't keep swapping and changing managers and people around it. You've got to all be pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
And, you know, Justin had a real good knack. Not only was he a decent coach, his man management was incredibly good. He knew who needed a kick up the backside. He knew who needed an arm round him. He needed who needed loving and all that sort of thing. But he engaged everybody. He engaged the fans. He engaged the board. He engaged everybody involved in the club. And they all felt, and everybody will tell you, they all felt special around him. You know, sad day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's heartbreaking, wasn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very sad.
I've also spoken to a few players who played under him on these one-to-ones, and they all speak so highly of him. You could tell that he really meant a lot to them, and obviously to lose him so suddenly like that was just can't even put it into words, really, mate.
No.
But so I read something about Justin when he first joined the club. Said something about you yourself being integral to bringing him into the club. So as a fellow manager, you know, how did you appreciate him and his ability? As obviously, I know you've gone through it a bit, but then do you appreciate those words personally? And then how did you appreciate him as a manager then after that, obviously getting to work with him?
I think you build relationships in all walks of life. Yeah. And it comes down to values, and it comes down to trust. Yeah. I trusted him. He trusted me. I valued him, and he valued me. And it was a great combination. It was, you know, it worked well for him. Yeah, I didn't pick the team. I didn't do the coaching. You know, I fought some battles for him in the boardroom. You know, and you know, we pulled everybody together. So, you know, I was probably the glue, if you like, that brought everything together. But he delivered, and no one will take anything away from what he did, because that momentous day at Wembley, I mean, it was just meant everything, meant the world to me. But it wasn't about me, but people like your David Handos, your Ray Taylors, all those people that had put so much effort into the club to get it reformed, and the fans and the number of people we took there, you know, the hair stand on my back of the neck now talking about it. It was just an incredible day for everybody that was there, and there was a lot of tears shed, and there was a lot of champagne drunk, but it was fantastic. I remember Flinney coming off, and I was on the bench actually, and Flinney coming off, and he sat by me, and there was like minutes to go, and before Azza had put the second one in, and we were just like, what's happening? We're going to do it, you know, and it was like, we've done it. It was just incredible. Blew everybody away.
Yeah, I mean, where football's concerned, it's still and probably always will be the best day of my life, going to Wembley that day. I mean, obviously, we went to Wembley the year before as well, which was an absolutely unbelievable experience. I mean, what was it like for yourself? Obviously, that first trip to Wembley, how was that for you?
I think we learnt a lot as a club. I think we learnt a lot the first time, because We tried to do things professionally, as we always did. Yeah. But we got sucked up by the occasion. Yeah, it's like Wembley, we're all here, and it's like suits, and it's carnations, and I wouldn't say we weren't focused or we weren't prepared. We probably froze, if I'm honest with you. Whereas the second time, when we went back against Wrexham, it was right. We're coming here to do a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
The suits. Forget the carnations. We have got a massive opportunity after 25 years to get this club back where they wanted to be, where everybody started. And I think we went there with a different type of mindset. And that's not saying the mindset we had was wrong, but it was the occasion the first time. This was business. Yeah. And
even as a supporter, you could tell, the first time round was the day out. The second time round was business,
Yeah. And I think, again, Justin has to take immense credit for that, because he led that, and we supported him, obviously.
I mean, it was a strange season, obviously, because the season before, I mean, we'd nearly got relegated. We weren't that far away from it, and obviously, we stayed up. We turned things around so well, and it felt great, and we felt we could go into the next season with some real confidence. But I don't think anyone really truly believed at the beginning of that season that promotion could have actually been on the cards. I mean, even when we won our first, we won our first 5 games, and then we went on, obviously, up and down a bit, but we were up the top for the majority of the season. And I always say the game against Hereford away was when I really thought, going to be it. Yeah. After Robbie Wilmot stuck that ball in, and I tell you, I nearly collapsed because I couldn't stop jumping around.
I think in over the years, we talk about the stability, we talk about the continuity, we talk about the team spirit, but the bottom line is it is momentum. Yeah. And that game against Hereford, that just notched it up another level, didn't it? It just took us into top gear, and it couldn't have come at a better time, really. And I think that the fans started believing in it, the players started believing it, and everybody in the club started believing we have an opportunity to achieve what they set out to do 25 years ago. And that's when I said, when we went to Wembley, I'm going to tell you this story. We trained at Chelsea's training ground, Cobham, right? And Lenny Pidgley, and there was a bit of a scrap, right? And on the training the day before, right? And it's probably not been documented, but I'm going to tell you because it's no big secret, really. Not now, it's not, because obviously what happened was more important. But basically, he got into a scrap with one of the players, and Justin's there, and I'm going, "Wait, what's going on? What's going on?" He went, "Let him carry on." And it's just let him carry on. So then all the players are pulling them apart and this, that, and the other. Get back in the change rooms after training. He went, "If you guys fight as hard as you fought in that training session tomorrow, we'll be in the league." And walked out. Great management. Absolutely. Yeah. He didn't go in and go, "Oh, what are we doing? Oh, this is terrible." He just went, "You fight like you fought out there on that training ground, and we'll be in the Football League." Great management. Great management.
And funny enough, Lenny Pidgley was obviously one of the stars of the show, wasn't he, as it turned out?
Yeah.
So obviously back in the Football League then, loving life as we know. In 2014 then, it was your time to move on again then. Obviously you went back to Gloucester City. So you went back as a manager. Were you in a place where you felt going back as a gaffer was right for you at that time?
Well, as I explained, the reason I went back into that role was purely because of my business commitments as a director of football, general manager, call it what you want. And Gloucester, when I left Newport, as I told you right at the beginning, as a young lad, I went to play for Gloucester. So obviously Gloucester's very close because I live in Gloucester, not just in Gloucester and Cheltenham. And, I got a phone call saying, "Look, we're going to change the manager. Would you come back?" And I'm going like, what more can I do at Newport? Because I went back to help Matt Southall and the rest of the people achieve what everybody was dreaming of. And we actually achieved that. And I thought to myself, well, do you know what? You can outstay your welcome sometimes. Do you know what I mean? And like, that was, again, I'm on my first, the managerial thing was nearly 6 years, just shy short of 6 years. And the direct football role was, I think, 5 years, 6 months or 10 months or whatever. So, you know, you put those 10, 11, 12 years together, that club had come a long way from the Southern League Midland Division into the Football League. And people were saying to me, you must be mad to walk away. And I generally felt that Gloucester was struggling at the time. It was my home city. Look, go back and help them out. I've done what I set out to do. You know, let someone else drive it on, because sometimes you need that as well. And that's why I went back and, you know, kept them in the league. And also the promise that the ground was going to be built in 18 months. And, you know, 3 or 4 years later, it still wasn't. And I'm glad to see that they're going to get back on this season, because they've now started the ground and should be finished in time for the start of next season.
Good. Happy days. So, well, one of your most recent football appointments was Hereford as a head of football. So, why did that come to an end? Because I know you actually handed in your resignation for that, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I explained to you before, Chris, really, is that it's all about values. Yeah, you've got to feel valued, and you've got everybody pulled together. It's a big club, and they're going through exactly what Newport went through. Yeah. And the stability isn't quite there at the moment. You know, the togetherness, the trust, and the board, if you like, have had their issues, and there's a little bit of backbiting here, a bit back. And I just feel that if you're going to do something, everyone's got to be pulling in the right direction. Yeah. And I didn't get that feeling that, you know, that I could help them. And, you know, if you're not being valued, then you're in the wrong place. Because if people value you, you know that you're on a journey, you're on you know, whatever goals you've got, you've got about it. And I just said to the chairman, I said, look, you know, I don't really think I can support you anymore. And I think it's probably best if I moved on. And that's what I did. So, yeah, that's where we are today.
Okay, so could there be a football role for you in the future, maybe?
I'll be honest with you, I've had 2 or 3 really good offers, but I've got an issue at home that I'm dealing with at the moment. My wife's not extremely well, so we've got to deal with that. So that's a personal thing that I've got to deal with first. But yeah, I mean, football's in my blood. You know, whatever I can do, then I'll do something somewhere. I've done a bit of scouting for a few different people, and I'll continue to do that. In the meantime, unless something comes up. But whatever it is, I need to feel that I'm valued, and I need to feel that there's a project, if you like, because both times at Newport there was a project. Both times at Gloucester there was a project to keep them in the league. We kept them in the league at Gloucester and ended up finishing 10th in the National North on pittance. Yeah, built a really good squad. So yeah, it definitely would be involved in football again if the right opportunity came up.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, we wish your wife all the best, of course, mate. Hope she's okay. So, that's pretty much what I got for you there, mate. One of the questions I usually ask, you know, our former players, who's the best player they played with and played against. I suppose for a different spin for yourself then, who would be the best player you managed and the best player you had to manage against?
Wow. That is extremely difficult. You got to bear in mind that in the 10 years or so, 11, 12 years that I've been involved, you know, in terms of the best player I've managed, wow, it's difficult. It's difficult. But Carl Dale was exceptional when he came to the club. He done really well at Cardiff. And I mean, Carl was one of these players that if hit him on the backside, he'd go in the back of the net. He was everywhere. He was a box of tricks. He's got a great finisher. But, you know, Pat Mountain was a decent goalkeeper. Darren Roberson was a committed fullback. Gary Shepherd scored goals. You know, Jason Perry played a big part. Jeff Eckhart. You know, Gary Mark, that that I couldn't pick one out in particular. There was some great players that played at the level, and that's what you got to bear in mind, that were really good, that enabled us to win promotion, enabled us to take on, Matty Rose is another one that springs to mind. He scored the goal against Blackpool at home, and there was loads. I mean, then you look at your Aaron O'Connors, your Sam Foley's, your Gary Warrens, and Jamie Collins, Kerry Morgan's had a great spell at one. Danny Rose. I mean, they're just endless, aren't they? You know what I mean? They're just endless. Great characters. Lee Minstrel, Max Porter, David Pipe. Pipe, he was done brilliant for the club. Robbie Wilmot as well. Lenny. I could name them all. It's just very difficult. I suppose Flinney is also very close to my heart because he played for me when he was 16, 17.
That's right, yeah.
And I sent him a lovely picture of us. I think he was 17 the other day, and his curtains, I should say, call him, his hair was. He wouldn't want that shown around too many places. But Flynn has always been. I've followed him when he left and had a really great career, and just delighted he's doing so well now. And the cut runs that you've had recently have just been phenomenal for all the fans. So yeah. Chris, I couldn't honestly put my hand on heart and just pull one out of that lot.
Have you got one that you've managed against that stood out for you?
I suppose. Yeah, I suppose like, Brett Ormerod really stood out. I mean, after we played Blackpool, he went to Southampton, I think, for about £1 million. He got the penalty up there when we were 2-1 up with 5-10 minutes to go. Fortunately, it worked out really well because Sky come and covered the replay. But yeah, there's another lad that's now at Barnsley who was quite exciting. Played for me at Gloucester, and that is a lad called Luke Thomas who's at Barnsley. He's very good as well. But honestly, I've been in the game such a long time. That's why I got grey hair. It's like there's so many. And to throw it on me like that, I should have done a bit of research, really. But yeah.
Okay, mate. I mean, you've mentioned some great names there. Who are all in their own right, worth a good mention, of course. So but that's pretty much all I got for you there, mate. So I really appreciate your time.
I hope that's okay, Chris.
And I got to say, and I'm sure I speak on every Newport County fan. It's one huge thank you for the work that you've done for the club over the years. I mean, I'm absolutely certain that without your input, we wouldn't be where we are today. So basically, thank you very much.
I think it's a team effort. And as I said before, it's all about pulling in the right direction. And we have some great people. In my time at the club, some fantastic people put their heart and soul into it, right from the beginning, right to the end. And, it's been a privilege for me, and thank you for those kind words. But it really has been my privilege to be a part of Newport County. I love it. I love the fans as well.
Good man. Happy days.
Right. Cheers, mate.
Tim, very much for your time.
My pleasure, mate. Bye.
Many thanks for watching the latest content on the Amber Army channel. Please make sure you leave us a like. Make sure you subscribe for more content, both for the neutral football fan and also plenty of Newport County. Even more Newport County content can be found on the club's iFollow channel on the link above. It is just £4.49 per month to subscribe to that service. And those of you feeling extra generous can also support us on Patreon on the link at the bottom there. That would be a monthly donation of your choice. Thank you again. Make sure you've subscribed, and as always, up the county.